And then slowly her head comes down again. It took Melinda about 5 minutes to ditch this guy, not because she regretted her decision, but because, there was a monster under her bed. And let's just say, between you and me, it was an OT monster. A monster that OT had created. And so when he finally left and the door shut, she comes running in, and she knew enough to know that I would need a large bottle. And she goes, "You probably need this about now, don't you?" And I said, yeah, I do. And as I was, emptying my bladder, which was probably the size of the Goodyear blimp at that point, she said to me, "Do you wonder why I didn't want to marry you?" And that was the moment that I truly did understand. The OT moment. You can't predict what will be done with the skills. But why would you want to? Why would you want to? The clinicians have it so dreary compared to you guys. I mean, it's fairly clear what's going to happen when you suture a wound closed. It's fairly clear what happens when you reattach a bone. It's fairly clear what happens in most clinical situations. The patterns are clear. Clinical medicine is based on repeating well-worn patterns and predictable patterns. OT is about unleashing this unpredictability. Hey, celebrate! So if there was ever a demonstration of where our investment priorities are wrong, we need only look to the soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh, but listen to me. Hold on. Get this clear now. The investments that were made in acute care and battlefield-grade trauma care in Iraq are greater than any investments that have ever been made in the history of warfare. As a result, the survival rate for the troops in Iraq is higher than has ever been the case in any conflict in world history. Yet out of that have come words like polytrauma. Out of that have come soldiers like Cade Hinkhouse, Lance Corporal, Marine, 7th Regiment, India Company. Lost half of his brain, lost a leg, lost most of an arm. Yesterday went in for cranioplasty surgery to have a new cranium on the side of his head that caves in. Now it will look whole again, look symmetric again. He can talk. He can talk about his experience. He says 5 years down the line, when I asked him, he wants to be a history teacher because he says kids should know about what war is. And looking at Cade Hinkhouse, I mean, you see what war is. But the TBI injuries, the triple amputee injuries, the multiple amputations plus brain injury plus burn injuries that are coming out of this war are like nothing we've ever seen. The chapters of rehab and occupational therapy will be completely rewritten by the generation that's coming out of Iraq. The investments required for those soldiers for the rest of their lives will greatly exceed the investments that have already been made in trauma care. The Pentagon is attempting to deal with this by maximizing the care for these people with disabilities. Yet compared with all the people with disabilities in America, it would be a great disservice to our society if we set up a parallel culture where only veterans get the care. Only veterans get this investment in the rest of their lives. Remember, every one of those soldiers, and it's probably close to 1 million soldiers who have been rotated in and out of Iraq, we're told they were fighting for freedom in Iraq, in Afghanistan. If you ever go to Walter Reed Hospital, you see that the war ends there and the war begins there. Who's fighting for these soldiers' freedom today? Who's giving them the permission to move on with their lives? Who is showing them the horizon that's out there? Who is capable of saying that despite an injury we've never seen before, we know there's a path through that injury to the improvisational engine that OT drives that makes human beings become what they can be? Who fights for that? Who knows that path? Who does that job? You. Yeah, momentum is building. This may be the greatest moment in the history of this profession. And who's going to take it on? If not all the people in this room, then certainly most of the people in this room. And when the story is written of what happened to those lives, Kate Hinkhouse is 20 years old, it will have been written by OTs. There's no greater heroism than that. There's no greater fight for freedom than that. There's no better reason to stand in the aisle and dance. Thank you very much. Have a great conference.